Welcome to Who Knew. We are fans of the current series of Doctor Who, and here we discuss our likes, dislikes, and insights into the modern regeneration of the show. Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher, or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/WhoKnewPodcast. All our episodes are on WhoKnewPodcast.com. You can leave comments there, or email us at WhoKnewPodcast@gmail.com. We also have an Instagram and Twitter account. Tweet at us at WhoKnewPodcast, and find us on Facebook. Today we're taking a quick trip in the Tardis with Classic Who.
Today it's Who Classic.
Today's episode is the first serial of the 21st season, Warriors of the Deep. Peter Davison plays the Doctor, Janet Fielding plays Tegan, and Mark Strickson plays Turlough. Visiting Earth during the Cold War of 2084, the Doctor, Tegan, and Turlough find themselves confronting the other race of Earthlings, the Silurians. This story is written by Pennant Roberts, directed by Johnny Byrne. It originally aired between the 5th through the 13th of January 1984, and Part 1 got the most views with 7.6 million viewers. Hi, this is Eugene. Let's introduce ourselves.
Hi, this is Frank.
Hi, this is Kelsey.
Hello, this is Albert.
This is Josh.
Hi, this is Brian.
A Silurian battlecruiser glides above the ocean floor heading toward the human military base, Sea Base 4. The base is tracking the unidentified ship until they lose it when it descends to the rocks on the ocean floor. They send out a probe to locate it. A young, inexperienced ensign named Maddox fears that he cannot do his job. He was only on board to observe and learn how to mentally sync with the nuclear weapons array. Lieutenant Michaels, who held that position, has died unexpectedly. The job is now his. The probe is destroyed and an automated missile attack is called. Maddox is hooked into the sync machine, but the missile attack turns out to be a practice run. He is overwhelmed and the base commander orders him to go to the Doctor. Dr. Solo and Officer Nilsson drug Maddox and implant a device into his brain so they can now control him remotely. They are enemy agents who killed Lieutenant Michaels and plan to destroy the base.
It's very 1984, mid-80s, because it's very Cold War oriented. I was laughing at how, there's two sides, but you never mention the name of the other side. They're just the others, them. It's like, you never wanted to say Russians or the Soviet Union. They really didn't do that on they would do it in movies, but they wouldn't do it in kids shows and fun things like this was supposed to be.
I will say, and then at first glance, the set design seems, thorough. The set actually itself seems very good as long as they don't touch anything.
Yes.
You would then find out.
Because at the beginning I thought they were just filming in a real place that they
so did I.
used as an established set or somewhere that they always go to.
And the outfits really reminded me of ski outfits from the 80s. But even the costumes I thought were, as silly as they looked, they were really thorough. Every detail was paid attention to for the art direction on this show.
A weird choice about the art direction was that everybody has eye makeup, and depending on the lighting, you saw all of the future people.
Yeah, future people.
Depending on the lighting, you would see the eyeshadow on the men more. Mm-hmm. than other shots. It was very distracting at points because Maddox looks his makeup is caked on to make him look sweaty and weird. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, that's just a weird choice to me.
I think when we saw the Doctor for the first time, the woman Doctor, I was like, oh, is the makeup part of the uniform? Because it was right after seeing the other woman who was on the bridge also heavily in makeup.
I think it was just made to make them look somewhat futuristic. That was a big look in the 80s. It was basically exaggerated 80s makeup on everyone.
Cyndi Lauper,
yeah. It's just, so I have a feeling it wasn't as jarring, in 1984. Like Tegan's dress.
But they were looking at the unidentified ship and they said, it's not one of the hunter killers. And I was thinking 84, this is Terminator time period also the same case. Yeah. So I thought, I don't know if just looking back at that or is that just something that was popular at the time, but it's not one of the hunter killers that the other other side has.
I thought those miniatures were done better than some of the other things that they did. Because they cast that lighting effect that made it look like it was underwater, but it wasn't.
I didn't quite read the underwater until later in the episode, but I did like the practicals. The scale was a little bit odd.
Yes.
It felt small watching it. And then when you go into the ship with the Silurians, it's like, oh no, it's a big
Yeah.
thing.
Well, there was that shot where they shot out a probe. Was that in
Yes.
what we talked about already? It looked really fake, but I kind of feel like the cameras is what made a lot of this seem fake. I kept looking at things thinking if this was like shot on film, or if they were able to light it, they could get away with it looking quite well. But
The lighting was really different in each episode.
I didn't notice that.
It's like sometimes it was like a down lighting, so the Nilsson looked like he had a big brow and big heavy
might have been for
eyebrows.
dramatic
And then later
effect.
on, it was all lit up, so it's like, oh no, it's not the same
Yeah.
person.
I think,
because the
you
lighting
know,
came from
there's a
such
re-
a different angle.
There's a reason for that. It's a production problem that they had.
With video, my assumption was that is because video cameras were fairly new at this budget level. So
No. What happened was that Margaret Thatcher called for some general election, and then so they needed to free up studio space, so they had to move production several times, and I don't think they had the continuity that they could have had.
Oh, I keep forgetting that it was a kid's show, and I think it changed throughout the whole seasons and different doctors. This one seemed like the budget went down, and it was definitely just a kid's show, you know. So it reminded me of some of the '70s things that we have. You know,
I
it's
don't-
still that video, that's still that lack of money to do anything really well. Shocked me, going, I think the budget went down on this season.
Yeah, 4 parts of this serial all taking place in that one location that
Right.
looks the same no matter where they're at in it. Yeah, it definitely felt low budget.
And I had no idea these were the Silurians after watching the ones that we had watched in the New Who.
same here.
It was like, okay, what race is this? And then when they announce it later on that they're Silurians, it's, oh, that changes. Wait a minute. I gotta watch this again.
I started to figure it out when they were talking about that their armies were asleep in hibernation. I was like, this is just like, what's the name of it?
Hungry Earth
Hungry
and
Earth.
Cold Blood.
Yeah.
So that's why we're doing this episode.
You know, the ones with the red flashy
Yeah,
lights on their
Well,
heads.
that was different. And
Yes.
I'm glad you mentioned that light, Brian, because I forgot about that. Because I was thinking, oh, so that's how we know who's talking, because they
Yep.
didn't put into the budget of the costume that the little beaks move.
It worked for the
Yes.
Daleks.
And then I was wondering, are they moving slow because they're pretending to be underwater? Like, I was thinking possibly they're pretending to be underwater, and then I thought, should they have had like bloop, 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 like bubble noises going on, and or are they just doing like a creepy slee stack sort of action? And then I was waiting for later on when we see them on the base. They're like, okay, so now they'll start moving fast. No,
those costumes must be hard to walk in or something.
I don't know, because they were even moving their arms slowly when they
Yeah.
would pick something up. Everything that they did was like methodically slow. You mentioned the Terminator, but I think the Terminator, they came out the same year.
Right.
So I don't think they knew about that, but I just think in their minds it was a creepy affect for
But
the
just the
villains.
term hunter killer, since it came out both year, they might have been using in the
Maybe,
world
yeah.
somewhere
Yeah.
to do some kind of machine or
Yeah.
missile or something.
Well, Eugene's the military expert. Are hunter killers used in the real military?
They're used in, like, I think submarines. So that's why that's a
okay.
more nautical term.
Well, that makes sense, and that's why they would call these hunter killers, because we're under the ocean.
It's a drone. Right now, it's used as an Air Force drone term. And there was also a submarine movie recently about the hunter killer with Gerard Butler.
During this scene, one part on the Tardis that had a quote that I really liked was where they're going to go. Does Turlough want to go back to his home or not? And he decided to stay on the Tardis. And he goes, they said, well, time will tell. And it always does. Time will tell. And on the Tardis, it always does. I
Right.
just like that little line. That was one line in this whole thing that I really liked. It was well written.
And where is he from again? I didn't even remember that he
Oh,
was
man.
from Earth.
Okay, so some background on him. He's from a different planet. He looks Terran, and I think it's still early in his time with the Doctor, so the Doctor is still a little suspicious of his motives because he was originally sent to kill the Doctor.
Interesting.
We covered it in
In the other episode.
the other episode where he's from. Okay, so that episode is a trilogy episode, so it's like 12 episodes. It's called the Black Guardian trilogy. The Black Guardian looks awful.
I do want to say before we move on, I'm glad that the showrunners from 2005 onwards learned and did the more realistic human faces, because I think that helped so much to connect with them. Even though a lot of the Silurians were like played by the same actress, it helped for us to connect with them.
And I'm glad they first introduced them in masks, so that it
Yeah.
did tie a little bit better. So you can kind of go, well, maybe they're wearing armor in the mask, and they can take that off with a red light, and they'd be a little bit more reptilian underneath. You can kind of retro think that. I do.
I never
I
thought of
guess
that.
it sort of makes sense.
That's good.
It helps.
Not that I'm going to watch this again.
I want to go back to the set. It's super bright.
Yeah.
And listening to the commentary, they wanted to make it darker, like submarine movies usually are darker. Like this looks like a space station. It doesn't look like a sub base. Like, I want to think of The Abyss or Das Boot or Hunt for Red October. But in the commentary, they said they wanted to go bright so that when they went to Red Alert, you could see the difference in lighting. And I'm like, it didn't work, guys.
Okay.
It didn't work.
Sure.
I think if they wanted to do that, then they needed to just have one alert and it always be red alert,
yes.
not green, yellow,
And
red,
yellow,
because that would have
No.
made it more contrasty to be in that darkness
Yeah.
more.
But I mean, the background is just so overblown if you look at it. I just feel bad for the production and the set designers because it looks
They went all
decent,
out.
but you can't see the detail because of most of the overblown light.
But sometimes, like, I think when they were running around a lot or when they would push into a close-up of somebody looking through one of the windows and there'd be stickers and things
Yes,
all over
that's
the
true.
place, like, it did pay off sometimes. And could that have also been part of the brightness was so that they could shoot a lot of different setups without changing the light? Because you
Could
could
be.
move all over
That's
that
true.
set and you're always...
It's
in the
consistent.
They
light.
could fly walls
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
and make room. I gotta say, it seemed like a place. Like
Yes.
I only, who was it that you were saying that earlier? That I only realized it was a set when one of the walls started shaking, and when they wouldn't really push on the door when they were trying to like let people. That was towards the end though.
But the opening shot, it's like a crane, so it's kind of wanting to show off that this is something we built. I'm like, oh, but you didn't light it good enough.
Well,
I like that. I don't know. I thought it was impressive that they put that node in Maddox's head. I was like, I wasn't expecting that for a kid's show.
yeah, and that's pretty ahead of its time too.
Yeah,
it was very data.
Oh, that's true.
we'll get more data later.
The Silurians settle on the ocean floor over an underwater bunker, housing their cousins who are in suspended animation. These beings, called the Sea Devils, are an elite group of warriors. The Silurians were planning to resuscitate the Sea Devils when they detected the probe. The Silurian leader Ichthar sends out the Merca, a large reptilian beast, to destroy the probe.
So that's our first mention, but we don't see the marker.
Merca.
So these Sea Devils, they're the elite group of warriors. But I do love that they tried to write a line to kind of put a spotlight on the ridiculousness of it, where they're like, oh, when they reanimate from suspended animation, they'll have muscular and organic degeneration for a little while. Yeah, that explains it.
Yeah, 4 episodes, a little while.
A little while. So while they're suffering from that, let's send them out into the field. Again, the costumes were so extensive, but I have no problem with any of the choices in this episode aside from some of the color schemes, but except for that the Sea Devils uniforms are basically samurai outfits inspired by Asian culture. So I thought, considering it's a race that started even before that, it's such a derivative of that. It also reminded me of the Draconians in Buck Rogers.
I see that.
I like the regular Silurian outfit and costuming, but the Sea Devils it threw me off how poorly they hid the head of the actors inside the costume, because every neck had like a bulge at the human head level, and then a little tiny Sea Devil head on top. And I mean, I guess they were more imposing because they were taller than everybody else, but I think if you had just moved that head shape down, it would have played so much better and had the same effect, but without the extra head bump in the neck.
That's so interesting because it didn't bother me at all because of the line that Brian mentioned. I totally bought into that. And I like later on I learned that these were actually like 2 different like species of the same race, or 2 different races of the same species. But when they first came out of stasis, I assumed that they at one time looked like the Silurians with the red thing on top of their head, and because they've been in stasis too long, they formed into these more bird-like looking creatures.
I see the bird reference because I saw that at first, but then I was thinking, well, these are supposed to be underwater, so I thought the beak that's on it was more of a sea turtle or snapping
Tardis.
turtle.
Yeah.
Tardis.
That's what they were
So
going
then it's
for.
like, that's what it was going for. And then for me, that explain the neck because they can reach their neck out of their suits.
Okay.
So that's how I saw it.
And they're always like leaning quizzically to the left or the right.
So sad.
It is surprising that they never mention that other race on the more modern episodes, like at all. It's not even a thing.
I mean, it's like the Klingons. We don't talk about that. There's many different Silurian races to me because every time we've seen them, they're kind of different.
Oh,
Because the first appearance was, I think, Doctor Who and the Silurians with the third Doctor and the Master.
okay.
And they looked more, I want to say they looked more like the Sea Devils without the helmets. And then when they came back for Doctor Who and the Sea Devils, I think that's when we saw the ones with the third eye.
Oh, okay. So this is all right. So this is like the third incarnation.
Yeah, and they're kind of building upon what they've done before, so they wanted to keep that similar shape.
Okay.
Yeah, the actors playing the Sea Devils could only do like 15-minute takes because they're wearing rubber suits.
Yeah.
They would heat up so quickly under all those studio lights, and that's probably why their heads are quizzically
Melting.
looking to the left or to the right.
Just going more about, because I might forget to, I don't remember where it comes in, but near the end of this story, one of the Sea Devils is being asked a question by Turlough, just the main commander of the
Forshack?
Silurians. Yes.
Oh, Silurians. That's Ichthar?
Ichthar, yeah, maybe it was Ichthar. But he's being asked a question, and Auburn goes, "Are you laughing?" And the reason why I was laughing was because the entire time the actor in the
I
Sea
remember.
Devil is nodding, but the head is just bobbing so much. And that was just like really funny to me. And I think that's just because of the costuming and stuff. I don't remember where it came, so I just wanted to mention it now. Now that I know that the head was above the human head.
I don't know if it's happened yet, but one point, one of the Sea Devils blinks. And I was like, that's practical, that's not CG.
I think while they were waking up, was
Maybe.
it? Yeah.
It's the right eye, I believe, that blinks.
It was probably the only day it worked.
Yeah.
So weird to see that. Wasn't expecting it.
Yeah.
The Doctor, Tegan, and Turlough are orbiting Earth when Sentinel-6, a security satellite, views them as hostile and fires upon the Tardis. The Doctor transports the Tardis to Earth and arrives inside Seabase 4. They look around until Turlough incorrectly calls for an elevator, causing an intruder alarm to sound. Officer Bulick is sent to apprehend them. With the unidentified ship, the destruction of the probe, hostiles reported from Sentinel-6, and now intruders, the commander is worried about the base. The Cold War must be warming up.
Yeah, I don't know if I like or don't like how they weren't clear on who was actually attacking the TARDIS until quite a bit later.
Yeah.
I kind of just suspended my questioning and be like, well, I guess I'll find out later if it is them or not. And we did. But because of the way that the show's made, it was distracting to me that, well, there's the threat of the lizard people. There's the threat of the saboteurs. There's the threat that's threatening the TARDIS right now. And then there's the main people on the, like, who's doing what. It was just all these things going on, seeming like you're supposed to know where they're coming from. And it just wasn't clear.
And I was confused because it's a undersea operation.
Yeah,
and then you
yeah,
have a
so-
space thing. It's like they're not
Yeah,
controlling the
so that's what
same
I was
thing.
like, so is the TARDIS underwater right now? Or, like, I kept not quite
Yeah, that's
getting
where I
it.
was confused.
I mean, I remember the 80s, and it just, we were always at war with some Cold War. And so, like, to me, it's like, yeah, they're fighting somewhere, something. And so it was, I didn't think about it, I guess.
I like the look of the Sentinel-6 satellite. Like, it was different.
Yeah.
And it looked aggressive. Like, it would be like a weapons
The
platform.
plungers.
Well, I mean, but
Their
there was
suction.
many of them,
Like
and they were
suction.
like
Again, it worked for the Daleks.
like creeping out.
I also got a big kick of the Chiron font and text on all the screens and stuff. It was very Pong.
I did kind of laugh when you saw the TARDIS console and that the Fifth Doctor did have like a computer monitor with scrolling text. It was like, that is a lot of money
Yeah.
in 1984. I can't believe they put that
Yeah,
into the
yeah,
TARDIS.
yeah.
This doctor is very dismissive. He's talking to Turlough because Turlough called for the elevator, and he's like, "Oh, you shouldn't have done that." It's like, "What? It's just an elevator." He goes, "No, it's called security." Just that flippant part. And then later on, he and Turlough are trying to open the door, and it's a classic thing that they're doing the time where, oh, the woman can come up and she can just open it lightly. See, she's good.
Yeah,
You know,
that
it's
made
just-
no sense at all.
Well, no,
It's
they
just-
were trying to push it forward, and she slid it.
Right.
That was the joke.
It's something that happened a lot of time in this time period of television.
Yeah. Even the very early ones, when there was something that was sexist, it called attention to the fact it was sexist. Like,
Right.
She would always, female companion would always call it out. So it was almost pointing a finger at it, whereas this just sort of felt like it was what it was, except for that door joke, which she showed them.
Right. But it was surprising me.
Although I want to say something about that, though, because I don't want to break the timeline, but I'm going to. That door joke, which is so dated, was in the 50th special too. You had 3 doctors locked up in the tower, and they're figuring out this massive plan to unlock the door that takes 4 centuries to actually come about, and Clara just comes in and says, it's not locked.
Right.
That
So-
one worked.
It's
Well, I
still
mean,
there.
That one worked.
Yeah, that one works very
Essentially,
well.
it's a Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton joke, but putting it on, yeah.
But I was just kind of like, well, we haven't left
Yeah.
that kind of trope
Yeah.
behind.
Seeing people be stupid is always funny.
It is always funny. Was one of my favorites was, I think it's in the TARDIS. Everything's rocking back and forth, and the Doctor doesn't know if he's going to be able to land, and he turns to Tegan and he's like, "Look on the bright side."
Yeah, I know. I was waiting for an end to
And then
that
that's
as
it.
well.
He never ends it.
Yeah.
He just leaves it
I was
there.
wondering if that was actually possibly a British term. Like you just say, "Oh, look at the bright side," and that's the statement there.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
he didn't have that kind of tone. It really was
No.
kind of like, look on the bright side, we're still not crashing or something,
Yeah, that could be a British thing, like something in Carry On. Maybe it's just something culturally we don't know of. Oh, the other thing I wanted to point out here is that the TARDIS interior looks similar to the sea base. I'm
Yes.
like, you gotta do something different to make them look like we're in 2 different locations.
Yeah, I didn't like the look of this TARDIS on the inside. It felt small. It felt very small to me, and
Because we don't spend a lot of time
not-
there. That's why.
Yeah, and not the usual,
Bigger on the inside.
Yeah, and technically, yeah, that set is bigger.
Like the console was pretty cool. It was extensive, but yeah, white walls and a door on the other side, and that was it.
That's fairly typical for the classic show. I mean, even the 6th, 7th Doctors, their console rooms are pretty basic.
Bare.
Yeah, they're bare.
Alright.
I just think it's because they didn't spend a lot of time there. They just needed to go there to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And then, oh, we landed.
Right.
Also, how about the fact that these people are just walking into the TARDIS? You didn't lock it?
I know.
I mean, that's so different
That's
than what we
later,
were
but
doing
yeah.
today. And they're just kind of like, all right, yeah, we checked the room. Yeah, we saw the ship. Okay, we'll come back to the bridge. All right, bye-bye.
That's why he got the key.
Yeah.
The Doctor programs a reactor to overload as a diversion for them to get back to the TARDIS. It can be easily corrected, but should distract the crew long enough. Bullock and other security find them before the Doctor can finish and attack. He orders Tegan and Turlough to run off and fights off the security. One of them pushes the Doctor over a railing into a pool of water where Tegan fears he's drowned.
Well, here's something that's consistent with the Doctor. When I say run, run. Run!
And if you didn't have the proper punctuation, it would be, when I say run, run, run.
So it could have just been saying, when I say run, run, run! Like when I say run, run, run! I don't know.
So at this point, has he switched into that hazmat uniform?
No, he's still in his
Oh, that's right, 'cause
cricket.
he's wet.
Yeah.
And this is where we see them struggle, and he hits
hit
the
the
guard onto the wall, and you're like, oh, we're on a set.
Yeah.
But he also tries to do it in a, oops, sorry, didn't mean to flip you over. Oops, bang
Oh,
you in
yeah,
the stuff. It's
yeah.
like, what kind of a
I'm so sorry.
joke is that of just not trying to fight, but then, no, you're trying to distract them so the other people can get away, I guess, but it just doesn't
Yeah.
work in that situation.
And it is interesting to see, they're making this to be the action hero of this show. In the newer version of the show, they made a decision to make the Doctor, he doesn't fight, he doesn't shoot people. So there's a lot of action tropes that are in this episode or in these few episodes that just the Doctor wouldn't even do today. Like he wouldn't punch someone or shove someone, and he's had more moments in this story arc than he did in the last one. I felt, I guess, stupid as that moment was when he punches the guy and he's like, "Sorry." At least that was
me-
interesting.
It was something.
Yeah,
To me, that was a Doctor moment.
yeah, I
Doctor
agree.
doesn't like hitting people. So to me, that was like one of the few times I went, oh, okay, character.
Yeah. I think that he had a lot more presence in this episode, but
I think they needed to play it up more.
Yeah.
To make it work
Yeah.
in that scene. It was like too quick, too little, and then they started really fighting and threw him over the side.
Peter Davidson seems like he has more personality than they are letting him use.
So I think it is the writing or
Yeah.
directing that's just going, no, we need to get this in the camera. We
Right.
need to
And I think
go for it.
even though they knew what, it's a kids show and they sort of knew what they were, I think it does have a feeling of that they were taking themselves too seriously, like they were trying to make it almost compete with more things that were going on at the time, and if they just embraced what it was more, they probably could have had more fun with it.
So Frank, what you said explains why this was done that way, because them with the Thatcher thing going on and then that needing to be freed up space for BBC studio space, they only had time for like one take for most of these. So that's why you get that feeling.
That's probably also why the extras don't move. They don't want to be responsible for ruining a shot.
Yeah.
I know exactly where I stand if we have to take a second cut. Take 3.
Yeah, I'm sure, if someone were to who worked on this production were to listen to our podcast, they would be like, if they only knew what it took to get it to where it was.
You weren't there.
Right. The setting the distraction that he uses to distract the crew, setting the programs the reactor to overload as a diversion, that bothered me.
Yeah.
I was like, really?
Yeah.
What if they don't stop it?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that too. I also, what was the other storyline that we saw with Peter Davidson?
The Daleks one, where he throws a Dalek outside the window.
Oh yeah.
Oh, right, yeah. I felt this was a different... What number Doctor is this?
5.
I felt this was a different Fifth Doctor than that Fifth Doctor. He just felt that the other felt he was angry all the time in the other episode. This Doctor was a little bit more like a Doctor we're used to, but still he's overly serious. So I guess my point is I don't know so much about the earlier episodes that were still in black and white from the 60s, but there seemed to be an inconsistency in writing his character at a certain point too. And I don't mean from actor to actor as much as just whatever the scene called for, they had the Doctor do, as opposed to like really thinking about, well, the scene calls for this, but the Doctor wouldn't do that, so how are we going to write it so it makes sense? That what is the Doctor going to do in keeping with his character? Whereas in these shows, he just does whatever the hero has to do. But I did feel he was a little bit more lighthearted than that other episode, and he actually had more presence in this episode. Mm-hmm. That other story arc, he was barely involved.
Well, if you remember, that was Tegan's last episode, so this is before that episode. So
Okay.
maybe there's an arc there that we don't know about as far as character. But
Are you hinting at something?
I'm not. I'm just trying to justify it.
Also, and this isn't to be insulting, but we might be, they were writing these things quick, cheap, kid show, just pound out the action. There, really doesn't, the Doctor's character arc.
Yeah, I'm sure they weren't thinking of that stuff back then. It's just interesting on how cerebral the show had become, even though technically this story is quite cerebral, all of the things that are going on. Some of the execution's actually quite good, considering.
Well, the stunt of him going over into the water
That
was nice.
That's a good cliffhanger, I have to admit.
But it's just Turlough. He fell into the water. He dead.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Let's go, Tegan.
I guess I did my job.
He's drowned.
Do you want to check?
But for the cliffhanger,
Yeah,
you needed
yeah.
him.
But then Turlough wanting to just go goes back to his first appearance, and we don't know if he's still
trying to kill
completely
him, right.
good and altruistic. So I think that's kind of cool that they kept that in there.
And something reminded me, like somebody calls him Boy at one point. And
Yeah, the commander.
You mentioned on our last episode that same thing happened. Like he's supposed to be a boy.
He's supposed to be in college, I believe.
Yeah, I don't buy that for a second.
I thought the story of Maddox was really interesting, like that he didn't want to be a part of this war machine, like he didn't want to fire missiles. Also, the reliance and the subservience to the computer was something that I think happens a lot during this time period.
Yeah.
Like the computer is giving them orders. They don't know if they're actually attacking somebody or if it's a simulation until the very end, where they're like, "Oh, we didn't have to kill anybody. This was just a test."
Well, that whole I don't know what year the movie War Games come out, but that's the whole crux of that movie.
I think it's 84.
Also at this time period, if you don't want to go to war, you're weak. So they made Maddox, I don't want to fight. He's really weak. He's not good for his job. He needs to be treated and psychologically treated and all this stuff. And it's like a very different frame from modern Doctor who's, no, I choose not to go to war.
Well, and who's the modern Doctor who's been through a war and is suffering because of it.
Some of the acting was actually, I felt quite poignant and serious and good, and I was kind of sucked into it. And then it would just turn on a dime. I mean, they would run, but they would run across the room because something just went wrong, and then they just stop and talk to each other like they were on Downton Abbey.
There was a lot of, like, if somebody wasn't acting in the moment, you would see them kind of, just hold until it was their turn to say something, especially, I think, with the Silurians. Yeah. Any background Silurian was just, like, waiting for direction to do something.
They were probably just trying to keep cool.
Yeah. Like, oh, I can't do any business. I gotta just breathe. But maybe that's why they were walking funny too, because it was sweaty. So they're just like, "Oh, this is so disgusting."
Who knows? I mean, yeah.
I don't want to chafing.
Yeah.
I'm sure the costumes weren't sturdy. They probably had to walk like that. Can't really move in this thing. Well, you know what? Let's make it so they move slow. These creatures move slow. It'll be creepy. It'll be like the blob.
There are certain points where you see the mask being untucked when the shoulder and
really?
neck joint, so you could tell that they've been working a long time.
Well, even the military uniforms everyone was wearing, those had to have been stifling.
Yeah.
People wear those things to lose weight.
Well, while we're talking about the costumes, anyways, I think you had mentioned really liking the costumes, Josh.
I didn't say I liked them.
Well,
I
that
just
they
said
were
they
intricate.
were thorough.
Yeah, no, you got to see like the backs of people, and there was like even padding and extra material on the back. Like they did go all out to make each costume kind of individual, but also a part of the whole uniform. Like there was a lot of different stripes of color that were similar but unique to the different ranks and people
or jobs classification.
yeah.
Because the foot soldiers were all the tan, brown, khaki color. Mm-hmm. And then everybody else that had a non-warrior job, I guess, had the color to their uniform.
Like Preston, the one woman had like a lot of different colored lines, and then the one guy was in like a Thriller red leather jacket.
Thriller. Man, the camouflage, the foliage in 2084 must be very bright and colorful.
Or our seabeds must be so polluted.
Yeah, exactly.
Why do you think that the foot soldiers were the only ones that had full mask helmets, like they would wear if they were going out into the water?
That's why, because I think they sometimes had to go out to the water, so they had to be at the ready at all times.
I always saw it more as a radiation suit.
I thought radiation too, but no.
Radiation as well.
But you know what? That makes a lot. I bet you it is because they were an undersea base.
It's a multi-purpose radiation breathable suit.
I bet you if you look close, it's a lot of the same actors, so it would hide their faces.
Oh, interesting.
A little, even though it's see-through, you wouldn't really notice their faces as much. And the underwater effect that you were talking about, Eugene, to make it look like dry for wet, one of the things they did is to blink the lights a little bit so it looks like that cascading light effect on water. So,
and I mean, speaking of that, it reminded me of like Thunderbirds, where it's clear that those are models, and I think if they shot it at a different frame rate, it would look more real.
it's the video. That's what makes. That's the thing that makes.
Because
video.
there's no option at that time for frame rate.
And also lenses, because since they're miniatures, to shoot miniatures properly, you need certain wide-angle lenses that make everything look bigger. But everything on video is shot with the same lens,
And it looks flat.
so it's going to look the same.
Yeah.
We've learned since then. The whole industry has learned.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like, this was their limitations. Consider the production of this episode, despite some of the choices, I think is really great. And considering what they had to work with and the low budget and all this stuff, it's almost like that's what I expect when I watch these older classics. So none of this stuff that I think is bad bothers me because that's what I expect. And then so I'm actually listening to the stories. I think I'm enjoying these more now than I ever would have if I was a kid and was like, this doesn't look good. This isn't Star Wars. Whereas I kind of get a kick out of it. So and to see an episode like this with so much work was put into this production that I kind of get a kick out of that too.
But I just don't think they allowed it to have the budget.
No, you know, it was America that had shows like Buck Rogers and Battlestar Galactica and all those shows that were happening that were of high budget and high quality. This is obviously Sesame Street.
Yeah, because at the time BBC was more focused on their period dramas and costume recreations and things. They weren't looking into sci-fi.
So like you said, they wrote these quickly, they threw it together quickly. That's what, I was actually surprised at how thorough, and I keep using the word thorough, but it's true. Even the silly makeup that the soldiers are wearing, like they thought of that and they put it on everyone. There's not an inch of the screen that hasn't been thought about.
You saying that reminded me of one more thing that I noticed on this that makes it a submarine underwater type of thing, is that there are the doors to everything are not flat. There's a little, you have to walk over.
Oh yeah.
Because
Yeah.
so that when things flooded, they could contain the flooding. That's why you see that in
I'd love to see a
submarines
joke
and
of
ships.
somebody tripping into a room.
So it's like a small thing that I noticed, and I'm like, good.
That's a good point.
Well, the doctor didn't drown and escapes through a hatch. Tegan and Turlough continue to be pursued by Bullock. Turlough is captured, allowing Tegan to escape. She runs into the doctor, and both head to the command center where Turlough has been brought for questioning. The doctor explains to everyone that they are not their enemy. The Silurian ship is seen on the monitors, and the commander orders an attack. The doctor warns them that the Silurians are a noble race with far superior weapons. You don't want to piss them off. The base attack is countered by a particle suppressor, which shuts down its defenses. Dr. Solo and Nilsson instruct Maddox to sabotage the base. His friend, Karina, tries to stop him, but he is ordered to kill her.
So at the beginning of this, is this the second episode in the series?
Yes, part two.
So part 2. At the beginning of this, a couple of things that bothered me when the doctor changes into the foot soldier's outfit and he makes that weird joke of like, "What did you eat?"
Yeah.
Like a fart joke.
Yeah,
It's
like
very
what
strange.
was what
I
was
didn't get it
that?
as a fart joke. I just
That
thought,
It
wasn't.
was a fart joke.
Because what have you been eating?
Yeah.
Like, it's all
It
contained.
puts on the hazmat
well, I
outfit,
thought,
it's
like
airtight.
salami and stuff, it just comes out of your mouth and then.
It's that as well, but it's a fart joke essentially.
And maybe it went over well with the kids. And then when he tells Tegan to stay in the hallway for his peace of mind, you're like, oh, okay, he wants to keep her safe, but then forgets about her. Like he just left her out there to then. And then the Turlough comes back and is like, hey, what are you doing here? Come in with me.
Yeah, but she didn't do anything in this episode. She didn't contribute at all. But take her out of this episode, you still have the same episode, which is unusual even for the earlier episodes.
No, they needed somebody in distress.
But it could have been anyone.
Speaking of other funny moments here, funny, not funny. Well, I thought it was funny. I laughed. When the doctor, he goes out of the room and then he turns around and fixes like the keypad so that nobody else can get in, and you hear that they're trying to bust through the door, but then when you come back to the other side, someone's just standing there and there's one soldier knocking on not even the door part, but he's just knocking. Yeah,
And he's obviously knocking so he doesn't hit the wall hard.
yeah. But it was just
That
like,
was
oh,
hysterical.
they're not trying to break through. They're just letting them know they're still there.
He's trying to find the weak spot so they can weld through. I don't
Yeah,
know.
he's like looking for the stud.
Yeah, that was a great bit. Just watching the background.
Yeah. I forgot about that. I'm glad you mentioned it.
Well, good for that extra.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
I'm
fun.
doing my job.
I gotta say, like watching this, if you let yourself enjoy those things, this is a fun episode to watch.
Yeah.
The underwater stunt, when they shot that in a specific tank, it was supposed to be warmed up, but it was super cold the day that Peter Davison had to do that. So I thought he did
So the look
pretty
later
good.
on where he was not happy was real.
I think so. But he did pretty good. I didn't realize he was cold. He was acting like it was fine.
And he's a pretty serious doctor. I had never seen him before we did our previous episode, and I was surprised considering the way he looks, and he's kind of smiley, and his outfit. I expected him to be more fun-loving.
When he comes up to the man who's been electrocuted to switch outfits, he checks it first. Okay, you'll live. Now I'm going to strip you off
Right.
of all this stuff. And then he puts his body back.
Crosses his legs.
Crosses his legs. Cuts the arms off.
And then 2 other foot soldiers walk by.
Yeah, don't even see him.
recognize that there's somebody on the ground.
Well, they can't see with those helmets, with the hazmat helmets.
I mean, it's the time they're like, oh, great, another hazing going on.
Right.
Oh, those new recruits.
At it again.
Some might say fresh fish.
Karina, I thought, was actually a good actress who didn't get a lot of time. They could have done more with her. I thought she did really well. She seemed the most believable in the scenes.
I also liked the woman heading the military. I felt she
Preston.
was... Preston. I thought she did a good job.
She's like the number one of the station.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then when Turlough's helping her up into the vent, like she's not wearing socks. Not that mattered. I mean, I'm sure none of them were, but nothing about this seemed military at all.
Every time we watch one of the classics, almost, I say this, and so sorry to repeat myself, but I want to know how they would film the same storyline now. They would do a lot different because I think these stories are
good.
solid.
Yeah.
I think there's some good stories.
I
but
think so.
How they did it was such for the time period and such budget constraints, and didn't seem like they had a lot of time to rehearse, to shoot it, so there wasn't as much character development that we're used to now. And I think some of these characters could do really well, and you could have Karina be one of those that we would talk about, is she companion material? Because I think they would flesh out that character more if they shot it now.
This story takes like an hour and a half of television time to tell. Now, there are a lot of repeated footage because the cliffhanger and then getting back into it, like there's a lot of repeated.
It's like a
there.
5-minute overlap.
So today, it would be a 40-minute, 50-minute episode.
Yeah.
And I feel like if they crunched it down, because there was a lot of very slow parts to this serial, and so to be like a modern episode, it would have paced it up, and I think we would have had more character development than just like plotting bad guys walking slowly through the hallways.
Right.
But just like a few additions and squeezing everything would make it more modern.
One thing that I found nice is that the TARDIS materializes and it's not symmetrical with the rest of the props, so I thought that was cool.
Well, that's good. That's a good
I didn't
point.
notice it, but I do like that.
Yeah.
Now that you pointed out. Ichthar has successfully revived the Sea Devils and tells their commander, Savix, to order his troops to attack Sea Base 4. They attack Airlock 5, while Ichthar sends the Merca creature to attack Airlock 1. At Airlock 1, the Doctor warns everyone not to touch the creature because it can send electricity through its touch. It breaks into the base, electrocutes some of the crew, and traps Tegan's legs beneath the airlock door and steps on it so she can't leave. Everyone but the Doctor leaves the room and seals the bulkhead. The Doctor frees Tegan, but they are still trapped inside with the Merca. The Doctor blinds the Merca using a power pack from a weapon.
I don't think that's what happened with the door. I think the door, what it was it was so heavy they couldn't lift it, and then it stepped on it on the other side, and it actually lifted it.
I thought it lifted its foot at the other side.
No. What I
Also, it was like a fulcrum.
Yeah, because
thing.
it was dented. It was too heavy for them to lift because they kept trying to lift it, and then he stepped on it, which made it tilt up, and that's what they.
Josh, that's what I thought.
I
too.
can't imagine you not being so clear that you missed that.
I know.
Well, especially since the door looked more like a marshmallow when the thing's trying to break through, and it just kept breathing back and forth. It reminded me of Haunted Mansion, of the doors kind of move.
Yeah, I gotta say that the actors, what they call it, space work in this episode was not good at all. Nothing felt heavy. Nothing felt anything.
Boy, the Merca.
How about that, Merca?
Well, adults can't see the Merca. Only children can see the Merca, right? Is that right?
So that's why they couldn't see the foot on the door. They were kept trying.
Snuff Malurka with us.
When the Doctor, when the Merca's breaking through the door and you kind of see just the head peek out of the top, the look that the Doctor gives to me was like, that's what we spent the money on.
And that confused me at first because I didn't even understand that was going to be something else. I thought it was going to be the army that we had been looking at. So I was like, what is that? And then I figured it out quickly. But
we needed when they said release the Merca, we just needed that one shot of it leaving its lair.
Yeah. Boom, 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 boom.
The original script idea was supposed to have the Merca walking toward the sea base from the sea floor.
Oh, that would have been cool.
No, I don't think.
Well, it would have been something.
You know, looking at Preston is the character's name, the woman who's in charge of the military.
I think so, yes.
She has a haircut very similar to Sean Young in Blade Runner. I wonder if that was an influence since it's around the same time.
Rachel.
Yeah.
So the Merca, it's funny when they talk about it on the DVD commentary. You have Peter Davison, Janet Fielding, and then you have Eric Saward, the script editor, and Matt Irving, the visual effects designer. He said that they were given this task to create the Merca in the matter of like a couple of days or a week.
Really?
So this is the best
And they
they
didn't
came
have any
up with.
bubble wrap?
Didn't have anything.
They did have bubble wrap, but like
No, those were on the bed.
go for it, Brian. Sorry. They use it on the bed later on.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what you want on your bed.
Yeah.
Bubble wrap.
It's pillowy.
And then the door was made out of foam so they could get the bending quality, but then it ultimately doesn't work.
And they were talking about that on the...
Yeah.
I mean, on the commentaries, I assume that they're laughing at everything as well.
Yeah, because when the Merca shows up, I think it's Eric and Matt that were saying this should have been shot more like Jaws, where you don't see it, but you see the effects of it. So when they show it full on, he's like, that shot doesn't work. They just admit it doesn't work. And they would have done something different if they could have go back and redo this.
But knowing that this was David Tennant's Doctor, I kept watching this, thinking of little David Tennant watching this, just and him enjoying it. Like, wow, you really like this, huh?
I thought they might have used like iguana and used that and then superimposed that, but
If they shot it like he was just saying, and you never saw it on the screen with the other, then that may have worked. But
We're going to need a bigger sea base.
yeah, exactly.
And I think that's where the lighting could have been better, where if they had it not been so overblown, they could have hid that costume.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad from the front, but when you saw the whole body, you were like, oh no.
and
You know,
no
Nigel-
credit was given to the back of the
Yeah,
Merca.
I know. I'm sure Nigel and Clive every day would have an argument as who's going to do the back end today.
And Clive would go, "What were you eating?"
See, it all comes back.
Speaking of those two actors, it's William Perry and John Asquith that played the Merca, and they were given this job because they had done a pantomime horse on a kids program. So they just said, "Let's do the horse in a sea creature." I'm like, no.
So that's why he was so friendly and lifted the door for Tegan when she was
Right.
stuck.
One other thing that caught my attention was the female soldier. I think it's Preston. When the other male soldiers are still firing, her look is like, seriously, this is all we've got? Because they're not doing anything to it.
Oh,
if anything, they're annoying the Merca.
And we haven't spoken about how the guns don't have any special effect
No.
at all. Not even like a flash or a light that goes on. Nothing.
I did like the Doctor taking out the power pack of the ammunition, the magazine. I think he took it out of the gun to throw it at Mirka, so that the electricity would set it off, blinding it because it's a creature from the dark parts of the sea where light affects it a lot more.
Was that the thinking behind that?
He says it really quickly. That's how they do this. Yes,
Yeah.
that's the problem. They say it so quickly nowadays.
good
We
to
would
know.
explain it all.
Yeah.
And then just looking at it from the Mirka's point of view, they have the eye, the iris of the eye and
I
everything. and then
liked
it's like
that.
coming through.
POV
It's like,
shot,
That was
yeah.
a really interesting way to do it.
Yeah, I really liked that. I like the look of that. Like, that's what they should have had. Just that. Like, that should have been the only
Yeah.
thing that we saw, like what Eugene was saying.
It should have been like the Predator, where you see
Yeah.
that thermovision or something
Yeah.
that's completely alien to us. And I think it's at somewhere around this point where the commander of the humans at the sea base has Turlough, because they sent Preston and their other foot soldiers into the Tardis. And this whole time, Turlough is trying to convince them that we have a ship, we don't mean any harm, we're traveling. And then he says, seems the boy was telling the truth after all. And then after that, the look that Turlough gives is like, oh, this guy.
So yeah, I mean the fact that they were able to go into the TARDIS, just walk into it, is that something that the older classic Who's like never locked the TARDIS?
I don't know, but they point out that he specifically left the door open so that they could enter.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what it served, though.
Again, I think it's just part of that writing that whatever the story needed, they just did. They didn't worry about rules or
Okay.
nothing in this story was dependent upon the Doctor being the Doctor, TARDIS being a time machine or a spaceship, the companions being who they were. Like, it could have been anybody.
Well, yeah. No,
To a certain extent.
I agree, but like the Doctor was the only one that knew that these were the Silurians, so that
Right.
was his
Right.
role here.
Right, but that's just exposition. Like story-wise, like obstacle-wise, when you write something, like usually it's the hardest thing for someone to do is the very thing that they have to do to make the story work. Or I can't do that because I know we're saying that the character arcs aren't as strong for this writing, but the Doctor doesn't shoot people or fight. So how are you going to win? People who want to shoot and fight. That's why I do think, like you were saying, that the story is really good because it's pretty robust what's happening. But again, Tegan doesn't do anything besides wear that thing.
Turlough grabs a weapon and forces Nilsson to remotely release the lock. Freed, they run toward airlock 5, but the Merca also escapes. It makes its way toward the command center. The Silurians are ready to enter the base. At the airlock, the doctor tells the commander that he has a plan to stop the Merca, and the commander assigns Preston to help him. They leave and the Sea Devils breach the airlock. Commander Vorshak tells the survivors to retreat, and the Sea Devils fight their way toward the command center, followed by the Silurians.
He asked for somebody who is confident with authority who can get things done. Okay, Preston, you go. So that's the opposite of, no, she's a woman. It doesn't matter if she's a man or a woman. It's like she's confident and she can do things.
Yeah.
So equal,
Yeah,
which is nice.
It's a weird dichotomy.
Where the doctor, who's supposed to be so much more advanced, is dismissive of the woman, but the humans have gotten to a point where, no, it's okay.
Right.
They're equal.
One of the Doctor Solos is one of the main villains,
Yeah.
and she feels like she's just as much in charge of being the villain as the other fella. She gives her looks off screen. Her smiles and looks off screen. She actually does it quite well.
I thought it was also funny that, okay, they're about to breach in, they come in, and they're not hiding behind anything. There's no cover. They're all just standing there.
That's
getting
what
shot.
that's how they're just like the Redcoats.
They mentioned that in the commentary. They're like, we've gone so far in the future that we've reverted back to our old patterns, and we just line up and...
Just line up and reload your musket.
So the commentary is quite fun for these guys to revisit this.
I like to hear that they are jovial about the show and not taking it too seriously and all that stuff. It is amazing how, I mean, while we're even doing this podcast, that there's something about the Doctor and these stories and the way it's been, it has an element of, Rod Serling type of, and Ray Bradbury. It's a definite, intellectual type of story that stands the test of time. The ideas of the time traveler. I mean, there's a reason it works, even if it doesn't, or when it doesn't.
I did like the Doctor moment when he grabs the gun from one of the other soldiers. It's okay, now we're at a standoff. And going, okay, well, we have to show trust.
Right.
Turns it around, just hands it. Here's the gun. We're not here to harm you.
Right.
It was a good Doctor moment.
I think too, back then on shows like this, a moment like that goes a long way. Whereas now we needed to be more. I keep using this word. We needed character stuff to be more thorough.
The Doctor and Preston alter an ultraviolet converter to use as a weapon against the Merca. Dr. Solo tries to escape, but is killed by the Merca before the Doctor kills it with light.
It's got to be the best death ever, or attempt to
Oh,
not
yes.
die. I don't know what is going on there, but she does some sort of weird dance before she dies.
It's the new type of defense, martial arts.
She was
It's the
surprised.
cannons to the right of me, cannons to the left of me.
I was
Throw a kick.
laughing so hard when I saw
Training
that.
kicked in, and she just
But that's also
It was hysterical.
that's also like 2 seconds after the fact that she walks down the corridor where the Doctor and Preston are, walks right in front of them, and it's kind of like, I'm moving so slowly, they can't see me. It's just like, okay, well, there goes the Doctor. Okay, fine. We're not going to talk to her.
Also, she should have walked the other direction.
Yeah.
Because where the Merca came in for the Doctor was around the other
Yes,
corner.
the other direction.
So
Absolutely.
she couldn't have, connected with him over there. But
Anyway,
anyway.
I did like the idea of it. The idea of it was she's a trained soldier who knows hand-to-hand combat, and she goes to kick its butt, and that very thing is what gets her killed.
Yes.
Eugene,
Yes.
the note I wrote down for this, Venusian Jiu-Jitsu?
I think it's the commentary. They mentioned that Michael Gray took over as one of the heads of BBC, and he specifically did not like Doctor Who, and used this clip as an example of why to cancel Doctor Who.
Of her fighting.
It was just he used a bunch of clips from this episode, and I'm just like, I can see why.
Yeah.
And Michael Gray is also responsible for firing Colin Baker.
Well, somebody should.
So this guy really hated Doctor Who when he got into power.
Everyone arrives in command to find Nelson and Maddox sabotaging the base. Nilsson kills Maddox by overloading his brain and takes Tegan hostage. He tries to make it to an escape pod.
That's pretty heavy for a kid show, overloading your brain.
Yeah.
I was like, wow. That's
And
one
Maddox
dark.
was finally freed a bit and going, you made me kill
Yeah.
her. And he was like really upset and was just like, turn the knob.
Felt bad for that guy the whole story. He didn't want to fight, and he was like sweating the whole time.
He was a very sweaty actor.
Yeah.
I mean, even the first close-up of him, he was already sweating a
Right.
lot.
Yeah. I think that was supposed to be on purpose, though.
Yeah, I think
yeah,
I
it
think
is,
that
but-
was
When the Mirka is chasing the Doctor and Tegan, the Doctor says his normal line, catchphrase, I guess, to Tegan, "Braveheart, Tegan," and he says that I think twice in this episode or this story.
Oh, and that's something that this doctor would say often,
Often
just to
to her,
Tegan?
yeah.
Okay.
Look at the bright side.
Braveheart, Tegan, and the Turlough is like, "Why are you talking to me?"
I forget exactly what it was, but right before Dr. Solo is killed by the Mirka, I thought the doctor had a very sarcastic response to Tegan about something. I didn't write down exactly what it was. It was just like I was so taken aback I wrote a note about it thinking, oh, I'll remember exactly what he said later. But,
So when they're walking in the hallway,
No, he was working on the machine, the ultraviolet machine. And she was pacing kind of in front of it. And he said something that was very dismissive.
yeah.
Probably like "Get out of the line of fire" or something like that.
No, I thought he was going to say
Okay.
that. But it was, why don't you just, that's it. Something like, why don't you just ask him nicely to leave?
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
It's like, no wonder Tegan left. It's
Yeah.
like, I don't like being this companion. I'm not your punching bag.
But wasn't it like 30 seconds later, Preston asks him a question, which he answers, and Tegan was like, "Oh, sure, you answer
Yes.
her."
Yeah. There's a whole different dynamic with him and Tegan that just doesn't come off as companion-like. It's like he doesn't want her on board feeling.
No, well, I don't know about that. I think she doesn't want to be there. The character arc of her companion was, she didn't want to come on board the TARDIS.
Right.
And has been trying to get home ever since.
Yeah, they even mentioned that in the beginning of this episode. We're going to try and get you home, right?
They got into the wrong time period.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's one of the first things they say.
But wanted to show her future, but not this far in the future.
Because I don't know too much about the Doctor and Tegan's relationship, but what I would assume from everything I know from conventions and Tegan goes to conventions a lot, the Doctor goes to conventions a lot, that this was like a really good Doctor-companion relationship. That's the attitude I get from it.
Right, and from the 2 episodes we've watched here, I don't see that.
Exactly.
How long was she the companion for?
3, because she was introduced in Tom Baker's last.
And Peter
Episodes?
Davison's first. Logopolis, I think.
So was she hit the companion for his whole run?
No.
Close to it, though.
Yeah, very close.
She always wear that same.
No, she started off as a Australian airline flight attendant. So she had,
Was she Australian?
yes, she is Australian. She had that Pan Am look
Oh.
for her beginning episodes, and then it changed to shorter and shorter skirts.
But that's also what's the style then. So she was very
Yeah.
stylish.
She even admits
Very
in
modern.
interviews that was my purpose.
Yeah. Running in heels.
Maddox at the computer rack with those chips reminded me of isolinear chips from
Yeah, me too.
Star Trek: The Next Generation. I think Naked Now is the episode. Yeah, where Data puts them in and out in the combination really quick.
Oh, right. I do remember that.
I felt that the Doctor just wanted to kill the Mirka like too easily. It's like,
Yeah.
try something else first, and then if it doesn't work, then that's your last resort.
I mean, I noticed it as well, and I just kind of geek thought my way into thinking it's so much of a threat that there's
Yeah.
no other choice
But again,
at this point.
but as a modern viewer to that,
Yeah.
I'm like, that's laughable as a threat.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, yeah.
and-
But not if it's only because of what it looked like.
Of course.
And it's an unstoppable force that if it touches you, you die. It doesn't even have to fight.
But I can't remove myself.
Oh, yeah.
It's this one I found very hard to watch it in that time frame that it was made. And then when who is it? Nilsson? Nilsson is the bad guy, right? And then that's what the doctor kills him.
Yeah, the guy who looks like the sheriff on Stranger Things. That's the bad guy.
Yeah. And then the dead Mirka body is on the floor, right? And then he's next to it. Okay. So the Mirka had to constantly be refreshed, so it was painted green lots of times, and then the 2 actors inside were pretty much breathing paint fumes.
No.
And then so when Tegan trips over the Mirka, she gets paint on her. I don't know. I couldn't really see it as
Of course
well.
not with that dress. It just looked like it
That's
was
what I
part
was
of
going
the
to say. I was
dress.
like, that's the reason they did that dress, so she would hide the paint.
Yeah, right?
So I just found that rather funny that that's her choice of wardrobe, and it hides the fact that she has paint on her. Meanwhile, the Sea Devils capture Turlough and Bulick and lock them in the crew quarters. The Doctor follows Nilsson and uses the light weapon to blind him. The blinded Nilsson runs into a group of Sea Devils and is killed. The Sea Devils find the Doctor and Tegan, capture them instead of killing them, and bring them to the Silurian-controlled command center.
I find it lazy writing that there's the Merca, there's Silurians, there's Iktar, and Sea Devils. All these alien names have all these fantastical pronunciations, and then just the army's just called something so English oriented. They couldn't even find another language. So what's Sea Devils in Swahili or something like that?
When I think what really made it weird is that some of the soldiers, or at least some of the humans, called them Sea Devils. Like the Sea
Right.
Devils made it to this level. Like who told them
Who
that
told
was
them
the
that?
name?
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
Yeah, it was a very slow battle. Like everything happened very slowly. Very slowly.
Which I thought was hilarious when Nilsson was fighting with the Doctor and talking with, holding Tegan and stuff, going, if you fire, the Sea Devils will come running. I doubt that very much. They've never come running. I just laughed at that line.
Or maybe to them, they have been running the whole time.
The Doctor recognizes Ikthar and is appalled at the killing of the human crew. Ikthar explains that he wants the humans to destroy each other in this war. They will launch the missiles from this base, and the other side will retaliate. The Silurians fix the damage done by Maddox and attach the manipulator device into the system to override the human component in the sync machine. The sync machine sounds weird. It's synchronization to the.
Yeah.
It
I
sounds
know,
like,
I kept
it sounds
thinking
like a
that
kitchen
too.
sink.
Yeah, I'm thinking that too.
So I definitely think James Cameron watched this season or this serial, especially like the underwater stuff, and then here they are describing Judgment Day from the Terminator series. This was what Skynet wanted to do to the humans, was launch an attack against Russia because they knew that Russia would launch
retaliate.
an attack back.
Yeah.
So I find it very interesting.
But that was
some
a
of that
very-
stuff is very prescient.
That was a very in the air concept.
Very common.
The second we launch our missiles, they'll launch their missiles, and then we'll kill each other.
The whole Reagan Star Wars.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not Star Wars that we
Star Wars Missile
Star Wars
Defense.
Defense Program. Yeah, we
Yeah.
were definitely at the brink of killing ourselves, according to everybody.
The Cold War was just it was almost as in the air as 9/11. Like it was a cliche at a certain point. But but that is when Terminator. I'm sure when James Cameron wrote Terminator, even
It
though
was coming out of that same worldview.
He had the germ of the idea of how Skynet became sentient and what their plan was and all that stuff like that. But I mean, so you're not wrong.
Okay.
If you were older than 10 in the 80s, it was just something that was just everywhere.
And this sounds like a very different Silurians than when he first met, but seems very familiar to our Silurians, where
Yeah.
they want to kill all of the ape descendants.
Yeah,
and
but he kept
primitive.
he kept talking how they were a collaborative. I don't remember what term he used, but how they caucused, like when I actually had a peace talk with you, just like they did in the more modern day episode.
Right.
I do have to say I like that they did reference past Doctors, past episodes, because you got to figure the last time, I mean, it had to have been over a decade because it was the third Doctor. And, there's no VCRs, there's no, this is a kid's show, there's no real reruns, I don't think. So for them to have the fifth Doctor referencing things that happened over 10 years ago, the kids watching wouldn't know what he was talking about. But I like the fact that they still did it. I think that's one thing that makes Doctor Who rise above the level of normal kid show. So that was one part I liked.
I like the line that Ikthar says here about the humans. He wants to let them die in the way that they lived, bathed in blood. I like it because it was here when I was like, oh, that's the point of this show. Like, that's the point of this serial, is that they're making a commentary on the Cold War by saying 1,000 years later, humans haven't advanced much and they're still fighting each other. They're still living their lives fighting amongst the humans. Whereas and I don't know if they thought about oh, where is the human race? Have they advanced into the stars at this point? Because they don't really mention
No, they don't do
other
that.
alien species or like running into other species. But for then I was like looking at the humans from like I was from another planet. You know, you've got species from other planets fighting each other, but the human race, they fight within. We're constantly fighting each other, not another alien race.
And also Tegan said it near the beginning. Well, things haven't changed that much, have they?
And I think that's probably why I also like the Silurians as a race, because they mirror us. Because when you look at the Hungry Earth and Cold Blood, there's the science people and there's the warring part of the Silurian race, and they don't get along. And we're both from Earth, so is it Earth that causes internal conflict? And then, like in here, you see different types. You know, the heavies, I guess, would be the Sea Devils, and the Silurians are more tactical.
Right.
I think it was one of the humans when they were talking about defeating the Silurians used the phrase "a final solution,"
Yes.
and I thought that was interesting in a kids program at the time. Yeah, they did a good job of making everyone's perspective seem flawed as well as noble. Like you could understand where the Silurians were coming from as well as you could understand where the humans were coming from. But yeah, that was like, whoa, you're going there.
And before we move on, let's also give a lovely shout out to the manipulator, which was made of colored straws and cotton.
Right.
Looks like yeah.
That was the thing that struck me, is that they put all this effort, and even there's tons of buttons on all these gizmos and everything, and then and even the bubble wrap in that earlier Tom Baker episode, that was bubble wrap was new, so not everyone had seen it. Like, this is in all of our medicine cabinets. This is something we see every day.
Well, we talk about how in these classic Who episodes, like, stuff is mentioned but not explained. And then it's finally in this moment you understand why you have to sync up to the computer in the first place. It's a fail-safe so that the computer doesn't just launch nuclear war against another country. And they don't say nuclear, but you know what I mean.
Right.
Because that was something at the beginning of this serial. I was like, wait, why is he being synced up to the computer for the missile launch? Like, this is weird. I don't understand what's going on. And then you have to wait 3 episodes later, and you're like, oh, okay, it's a failsafe. That's cool.
Yeah.
But it's like, that didn't feel the need to mention it earlier.
Yeah, I remember realizing that then too, going like, oh, okay, that's what I thought.
The Sea Devils put Tegan and Preston into the cell with Turlough and Bulick. Soon after, they escape through a ventilation shaft.
And of course, during all this part where they're killing people left and right, you don't kill the main characters. It's like, we'll take you guys hostage and the kill. Okay, you guys are going to be hostages too. Okay, kill.
That was very 80s.
Tegan and Bulick sneak to the command center and signal the doctor to leave. They go back to a storage room and find cylinders of hexachromite sealant gas, a substance deadly to reptilian life. A Sea Devil finds them and shoots at the doctor, but hits a cylinder instead. It sprays over the poor devil. And he melts like the Wicked Witch. Preston wants to use the gas on the invaders, but the doctor refuses. Turlough agrees with Preston and reminds the doctor that the Silurians want to destroy all humans. Stuck between a rock and a hard place, the doctor prepares for the last choice and connects the cylinders to the air pump. Savix arrives and kills Preston. Bulick sprays the gas, killing Savix.
Okay, I was waiting to hear about this because, again, I don't know if I just missed it because I was tired while I was watching, but he just argued not to do this because they're a living race, and then a few minutes later, they do it, and when it happened, I was like, wait, did I miss something?
But even before that, he just goes and kills the Merca. So it's very weird. I understand what you're saying.
Is there a moment where he concedes?
This was it. He couldn't find anything else that would just hinder them rather than kill them. But his idea was, we have this set up, we're going to send the gas in, and then we're going to try and get them to get out so they can live. He weighed it going, it's not complete genocide because it's a group of these aliens and he knows there's other ones
But it was
around,
still the let's...
versus the genocide, complete genocide of the human race. And it's like, just that became the spot moment of the numbers were what's important.
But it is like that moment in the beginning, like, let's press the button to kill them so they'll hopefully stop themselves from being killed soon.
Right.
And he also does say, grab the oxygen canisters. We may need them.
But I didn't catch that was for the other people. I thought it was for themselves.
I totally thought it was for themselves as
Well,
well.
they only took one each, and that's why it's like maybe they thought the same thing.
Yeah.
But the doctor
Yeah.
was thinking, no, we need more. And
Right.
it's like, you only brought
Because
two.
they, I mean,
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't know.
humans
You
are
didn't
slow,
say.
but the doctor had already said this doesn't hurt humans.
It was
on
a
the
lot.
gas.
There was a lot going on that wasn't clear.
Yeah, and also like if it doesn't hurt humans, then why were all these canisters in this chemical storage away from everybody?
Well, they said in the beginning it was
Locked up.
chemical sealant for anything
Yeah,
underwater. But he says that,
Anything
it
under-
was bad to reptilian life, and so he was surprised that it wasn't banned already. Why they still had it. So it could be because of the war. This is the only thing they had to build the sea bases. You didn't know, but it's like it was there and it's not good for the environment. They shouldn't have it.
But the death of that sea devil, that's pretty graphic for a kid's show.
Yeah, I actually was a little weirded out by it.
Which one, the melting?
Yeah, when he
Yeah, when
melted
the-
and the stuff came
The
out of his
green
eyes.
ooze
grease-
comes out of his
green-
pores and orifices. It's just, what? Like,
I
what?
know if I was, well,
So if you're a kid, you would have gone, oh, that's so cool. That's
Yeah,
icky.
yeah. And I guess because it's green to signify it's not blood.
Right.
If it was red, then it'd be probably complaints would have been made.
Sorry, and they didn't bring up like the newest Doctor Who episode, Hungry Earth and
Cold blood.
Cold Blood. Like they didn't know that this massacre had happened. Like they never mentioned it, right?
They only mentioned that the Doctor has encountered these aliens before, and that he's always tried to help them broker peace.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
never worked.
I guess they all were killed, so no one was left to tell the rest. Be careful for the Doctor; he'll kill us all.
right.
It was sad when the doctor said, looks like I'm going to let them down again.
Was that in Hungry Earth or in this one?
In this one.
I think it's also, he also says it in Cold Blood, doesn't he? Or I feel like the notion is given to us that way.
Right. That's why it seemed like in Cold Blood, when they're actually going to have a negotiation again, he seems so...
Hopeful.
Yes,
Yeah.
hopeful is the perfect word. And so this sheds some light on that, which is good.
Yeah.
Which is character motivation for why he's so hopeful.
The doctor releases the gas into the ventilation system, and the TARDIS team head towards the command center. Bulick stays behind to ensure the gas continues. Scribus activates the missiles as the gas reaches the command center. Sea Devils collapse, and the doctor tells his companions to give them oxygen to save them. The doctor syncs his mind up with the computer and stops the missiles. Ichthar kills the commander, and then Turlough kills him. Dead, dead, dead. The doctor, Tegan, Turlough, and Bulick are the only remaining living souls aboard Sea Base 4. They all regret the dark turn this took. There should have been another way.
Was not expecting it to end this way. I'll tell you that.
Well, and it hasn't quite ended.
Just for once, just this time, everybody died.
Right.
But it didn't quite end yet because I could see the doctor and Tegan and Turlough go back to the TARDIS and leave, and then Bulick is just still down there by himself in the sea base with all the dead bodies. It's like, that's horrible. They probably forgot about him.
Where is he? Where did he
He's
end
with
up?
the gas. He
We
doesn't
don't know.
Well, I think they just forgot about him.
Oops.
He was forgettable.
I just want a little bit more of an ending on that. But they ended it on the, there's
Yeah.
got to be a better way.
Yeah.
So this whole thing was just a moral story.
Well, what I did like about that part of it was they were trying so hard to not launch the missiles so nobody would die, but because of everything that was happening, everybody died. It was the futility, and again, that's a big thing about the Cold War argument too, is the futility of war and everything. Trying to survive is going to get you killed.
And that war is a numbers game. And that's just wrong, but it's
Right.
going along. No, everybody on this base died to save everybody on the planet. All the humans.
Really, though, what is it good for?
Absolutely nothing.
Not at all. Say it again.
Oh, good God, y'all.
I liked the captain's death. I thought it was a good death.
Yeah.
I liked how he got shot, and
But
then
he
he
kept
tells
going.
the doctor, "Don't let anything break your focus."
Yes.
And like,
He's very
and then-
committed.
Yeah.
It wasn't very clear that he got shot, though.
You didn't see the light go
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
No, but I thought it was a good death. I was like, oh, good.
It was, but Turlough's killing was just like, whoa, shocking. Yep, shoot, boom. It's like, okay, it's all right. Turlough is not the normal companion.
At this point, he's still,
Right.
it's still questionable where his
We find out he
motivations
is an
lie.
assassin. He's trying to kill the doctor, but it just...
Yeah.
Turlough with a gun, though, does remind me when they come back into the command center for the last time, and Ichthar says, unarm them, or what's
Disarm
it?
them.
Disarm them. And then Turlough just stands there with the gun for a couple seconds, and then the Sea Devil just takes it out of his hand. Just like, it was like, oh.
Bill was like, "Oh, my cue." The other one was trying to motion, but his head was already this way.
Sorry if this was already mentioned, but did we talk about how Turlough just, he's got the oxygen over the Silurian, stands up and shoots him point blank in the chest?
Yeah, it's like he's trying to save him, but then once no, you're now an enemy, he doesn't knock the gun out of his hand, he just kills him.
Yeah.
After seeing the Silurians with their guns, in air quotes, it's definitely going to make the Buzz Lightyear ride at Disneyland a lot more exciting.
Right.
Especially with the light.
And the light, the red light. That's the only way we know that they fired their guns, is we see the red light against the wall or against a person.
Okay, so we're going to go over the cast. Tom Adams played Commander Vorshak, and he has appeared in The Great Escape as Dai Nemo.
He had a really familiar voice, but he could have just had a familiar voice.
Ingrid Pitt plays Dr. Solo, and she was in The Wicker Man as the librarian, Where Eagles Dare as Heidi, and she's been in a couple of Hammer films, The Vampire Lovers as Marcella, Countess Dracula as Countess Elizabeth, and I don't think this is a Hammer film, but The House That Dripped Blood. This was interesting because John Pertwee was also in this movie, and she was also in classic Who, The Time Monsters, also with John Pertwee as Galea.
Interesting.
Ian McCullough plays Nielsen. Nigel Humphreys plays Bulick, Martin Neal plays Maddox, Tara Ward plays Preston, Norman Comer plays Iktar, Nitsa Shaw plays Karina, Stuart Blake plays Scribus, Vincent Brimble plays Tarpak, Christopher Ferris plays Savix, and James Combs plays Paroli and is the voice of Sentinel-6. And we mentioned that William Perry and John Asquith are in the Mirka. Some more things on the DVD is that Ingrid Pitt was supposed to, or Dr. Solo, played by Ingrid Pitt, was supposed to be a male character, and they changed it to a female. And Ian McCullough and her would fight for the best camera angles when they were both on screen. So that was Nielsen and Solo battling for the best close-up, I guess. And then Johnny Byrne, the director, said, "Do we need the Mirka? I don't know, even though I wrote it." I think that's it. The other thing that I found that connected with our current and modern Doctor Who was the sync operator. It just reminded me of the Lodger with the 11th Doctor and how he syncs very, very quickly with Craig.
In the headbutt?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say how he sinks very quickly in the spaceship at the end.
That too. I just found that there was very similar themes with like the Doctor's mind being used for something else. We mentioned that the Doctor has encountered the Silurians before with the third Doctor, Doctor Who and the Silurians and the Sea Devils during his third incarnation, and he recalls feeling that he let them down based on both of these encounters. And then now we have the fifth Doctor with Warriors of the Deep. The other thing I want to mention is that this takes place right after the Five Doctor special for the classic Who viewers, because we mentioned that Turlough is still fairly new to the TARDIS team, and his motivations are still unclear if he's completely good. And yeah, I just wanted to mention that that's where this is the scheme of things. That's where Warriors of the Deep fits in. I think this is also funny that this is the third time that the Doctor has encountered the Silurians, but to the Silurians, it's his fourth, I believe, because Hungry Earth and Cold Blood take place before Warriors of the Deep.
Yeah. So that makes it even more weird that they
Yes.
look different.
Yes, and they keep changing.
The Sea Devils should have been in that other episode.
Which means they failed.
They
Because
failed.
it's 20 years
That's
from now
right.
is when they should know about
Yeah.
the Silurians that they're coming, so...
The Doctor should have known in Hungry Earth that he fails.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I watched this episode. It makes me like the Silurians as a Doctor Who monster even more. Like, I really like this idea of a creature that looks alien but is actually Terran and was around when humans were apes. And then I like it even more knowing that the Doctor in different regenerations has encountered this race and tried to help this race, come to peace with the humans. And so I enjoyed, for the most part, I enjoyed watching this episode.
Just bringing it up with the Cold War, just having an adversary that you cannot make a compromise. You cannot get that connection.
Right.
And it's like it's on both sides. They both come to the table a couple times, and even the doctor said we brought him twice, and what did I say? And they've been slaughtered twice. He failed twice. So it's just that during the Cold War of not being able to compromise. I mean, compromise is not a bad word, and it just leads, when you can't find any mutual ground, leads to just destruction. And it's just like that, I think, is the main thing, and that was the sad part. And that's one thing with the modern series, is that they were starting to make some ground as to these are the parts of land that you guys can have, that we can then work together and try and get this. And so it was a little more hopeful and going, okay, you guys will be down here, you guys will go to sleep, and in 1,000 years, everybody else, we're going to be talking about the Silurians and trying to get everything ready, and then you can come and we'll be a little more receptive to a compromise. So it's just sad it took that long.
One thing I wanted to say was, for me, this is a perfect example of what people who don't know what Doctor Who is think Doctor Who is.
Yeah.
If you kind of follow me, where it's like, I have a friend now who I'm introducing to Doctor Who, and she's just been blown away because it's not at all what she thought it was. She thought it was a guy in strange clothes, very childish, silly, foppish, stupid, just running around. And it's like, you watch this episode and it's like, okay, bad aliens, blinky lights on rubber masks, the macra, God, less said the better. It's just this is the episode that, if I had someone new to Doctor Who, I would never, ever, ever, ever show them this episode, because it is just that, what you would think is bad about Doctor Who. And for me, that's everything of this episode is that.
And being a Doctor Who fan or diehard, we can see the good in the episode.
Yes.
But yeah, that's why when I'm looking at it, going, how would they do it now? Because the story's pretty good. But I think what Josh said earlier, that there's nothing particularly Doctor about this episode or his companions. It's like it could have been any other show that's not Doctor Who could do something like this.
There's those little moments, but that's about it. I enjoyed watching this, and I agree with everything that's been said. But I kind of feel like being a fan more than a casual, but not a diehard. Watching this has plugged me more into knowing about Doctor Who and being more familiar with it, and I enjoy knowing this stuff now. And again, like I said earlier, I expected it to be of the parts that are low quality, so I wasn't put off by it, and I kind of enjoyed about how bad those things were.
No, I agree that I would never show this to a new Who viewer, but
I would show it to many people.
Yeah.
As someone who's seen the Silurians in the modern series, I'm glad to go back and see a little bit of their history.
Yeah. I was totally unaware that they were historical,
classic.
classic Who figures.
And it's always fun to see, the same with the Cybermen, see how they evolved from, for the Cybermen from black and white to now, super CGI, and to also see the Silurians in the same vein, how they've evolved from the costumes and the characterizations, and what stayed the same, all of the talk about apes, that still works today and makes them an interesting character.
Yeah, so that's why we do these episodes. We hopefully try to connect them with the modern Who episodes that we're watching. And that's why we chose this one, even though it's probably one of the worst ones as far as special effects wise. So that wraps up Warriors of the Deep. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time when the future becomes the present.
You've just listened to an episode of Who Knew?
Our wonderful theme music is by Michael Grady.
Find him on Facebook at The Universe Explodes.
All our episodes are engineered by Allburn.
You can also find this show in several places.
Follow us on Twitter at Who Knew Podcast.
Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher.
Or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Who Knew Podcast.
Comment on our Facebook page.
Please leave comments, reviews, and click like to help support Who Knew Podcast.
Also listen to us on your Amazon Echo by enabling a podcast skill.
All of our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com.
This podcast is inspired by Doctor Who,
the longest running sci-fi show in history.
And especially the revival spearheaded by Russell T. Davis.
Thanks to Russell,
Sidney Newman,
Verity Lambert,
Ron Grainer,
Delia Derbyshire,
and all those involved in the adventures of our favorite Time Lord.
Your work continues to inspire and entertain.